The insurance market in Florida is constantly changing, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. I'm talking about that today. Stick around. Hi, welcome back. My name's Joe Brown, and I'm a realtor with Century 21, List with Beggins, located in South Tampa. Thank you so much for being here with me today. So many months ago, maybe even a year ago, I did a series of videos on insurance, and I interviewed a friend of mine who owns an insurance agency here in Tampa named Tom Roney. And there were 5 videos in that series, and so throughout this video, I'll put links to the different videos. But I talked to Tom recently and said, so what are some of the changes that have happened in Florida that I can share with you? So here's the big one, right? Because of the hurricanes, the past couple of years, Hurricane Ian, Hurricane Michael, several insurance companies have pulled out of Florida, or they were taken over by the state because they couldn't pay claims. So that really has dwindled down the number of insurance companies writing insurance in Florida. So if a person can't get coverage with a private insurance company, where do they go? They go to Citizens. And last I heard, Citizens had like 1.3 million policies in Florida. Citizens is supposed to be the insurer of last resort, meaning if you can't find insurance anyplace else, this is where you go. But it seems as though Citizens is one of the few insurers working in Florida. There are some changes within Citizens' underwriting policy and guidelines. So number one is if the replacement value of your home is over $700,000, then Citizens is not going to write the policy. Okay, you have to go to a private company. And second, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, the second underwriting guideline that's really changed for Citizens is if you're insured with Citizens and live in a flood zone, they are going to require you to get flood insurance. Now, most people already have flood insurance because your lender requires it. But there are many people out there in a flood zone do not have flood insurance. So if you're covered by Citizens, you will be required to get flood insurance. So here's some real life examples, okay? My wife and I, we are with Citizens, and our policy went up not quite 50% this year, okay? It went up about 40% this year. So I contacted my friend, Tom, and a couple other agencies, and the best they could do was double what Citizens was offering, right? Another example that I heard about, there was a gentleman in South Tampa, and his policy last year was $3,000. Well, his policy with Citizens went up to $5,000. But because he's also in a flood zone, he had to get flood insurance, and the cheapest insurance was $6,000. So here's this gentleman who last year paid $3,000 for insurance, and this year is looking at $11,000. These are true examples. But while I'm talking about flood insurance, let me stress, right? The FEMA flood policy and flood zones have changed, right? And it's really no longer based on elevation. That still plays a part in it, but more proximity to water. If you're, and that there are, and you need to check out Tom's video when we talked about flood insurance, but there's the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, and then there are private flood companies. So you can look at a private flood company and get a better deal, a better premium than you would with the National Flood Insurance policies program. However, when you go to sell the house, the buyers can assume the policy, which means they take over the policy if it's with NFIP. If it's with a private carrier, that may not be the case. I'm not saying it won't be, but typically they'll have to get a new policy. So flood policy, check your flood zone, check the FEMA map, see if your house is in a flood zone. Listen, homeowners insurance is really impacting real estate all across Florida because so many companies are pulling out. And here's the other thing. So let's say there's a company, Joe Brown, the Joe Brown Insurance Company, and I'm going to write homeowners coverage in 33611. However, I'm going to limit my exposure and say I'm only going to insure 20 homes in 33611. However, in Seffner, I may insure 30 homes. Then I'll go to Alachua County and insure 40 homes, right? So as an insurance company, I'm going to diversify where I write the policy. Because if all my policies are in one area and that one area gets slammed, I'm out of business. So you do find people, your neighbor may be insured with Joe Brown Insurance Company, but you can't get coverage with Joe Brown because I'm no longer writing in that area. Now, maybe next year I may expand. Now, for those of you wondering, I do not have an insurance company, okay? I'm just using that as an example, right? Company A will limit how many policies, how much exposure they have to different areas throughout the state. The roof, and Tom stressed this. In fact, this was the first thing he talked about. And I experience it quite a bit as a realtor, is roof, right? So, I have a couple things to share with you about roof. So think about how a lot of leaks happen in homes. So sometimes it's from sewer backing up, right? Or there's a leak inside the home. The most common is from rainstorms and leaks coming through the roof, and it damages the home. And so companies are saying, listen, your roof has to be in good shape. That's why there's a 4-point inspection required for every home. And one of the aspects of that 4-point inspection is roof. Now, the other 3 are plumbing, electrical, and AC. But just talking about the roof. So there are some companies that want to see that the roof has at least 5 more years of wearability, okay, at least 5 years. Well, other companies are saying, listen, if your roof is more than 15 years old, we're not going to insure it. Or it's even got to this point, if your roof is more than 10 years old, we're not going to insure it. Even though when you talk to a roofing contractor, they say, these shingles are good for 30 years. Yeah, not according to insurance, okay? It's got to be 10 years, 15 years. But here's where the issue is. If you're a home seller If you know your roof is old, you can plan on two things. Number one, repair the roof. Pay for the roof to be repaired, replaced now, and then just tack that cost on to what you think is the list value of your home. So, for example, if I was going to list my house for $400,000 and I replace the roof, so now maybe I market it at $420,000, but I advertise new roof. Because here's the second thing that could happen. You don't replace the roof. So you list the house at $400,000. Somebody said, oh, $400,000, but I need a new roof. So I either want you to give me a $20,000 credit, or I'm going to lower my offer price to $380,000. Right? So as a seller, it really is to your benefit to do the work ahead of time. I talked about this on another video several months ago, which is the pre-inspection. If you're going to list the home, get your house inspected. Get a 4-point inspection. And if the inspector says, oh no, the roof is good for another 8 years, okay, you're okay. But if the inspector says, listen, your roof only has 3 years left, then you know that will be an issue for insurance. And no buyer can get insurance for the house until the roof is replaced. So either you do it now before listing the house, or you have to take care of the finances by negotiating the sales price. Here's a second issue with roofs that I just came across 2 weeks ago. I had a client looking at a house, and the house had solar panels. So he says, oh, that's good, it's energy efficient. But the house needed a new roof. So the new roof was going to cost $20,000. But because of the solar panels, there was an additional $15,000 charge for the solar company to remove the panels so the roof could be replaced and the panels reinstalled. So this roof is going to cost $35,000 to $40,000 because of the solar panels. Now, I'm not saying solar panels are bad, but that's just a consideration for the future, right? If you see a house with solar panels, just ask, how old's the roof? Is there a cost to remove the panels, to replace the roof, right? That was something I learned just working with another client. I wanted to share that with you. Another big thing with homeowners, and this was signed into law this year, is assignability. So here's how it worked, and here's where the problem was. So I have a house, has a roof, and Hurricane Ian comes by. And there were a couple loose tiles, loose shingles. Well, a roofer comes by and says, hey, listen, you have some loose shingles. So I tell you what, we'll replace it. Just sign over the rights to us, and we'll deal with the insurance company. So I am assigning to this roofing contractor to deal with the insurance company. Well, that turned into massive lawsuits because the roofing company says they need a new roof. The insurance company says, no, they don't. It just needs to be repaired. So the roofing company sues because you signed the papers, you're out of it. And so that's why even though Florida has some of the lowest number of claims, they have some of the highest number of lawsuits because of the assignability. So that is what has changed in state law, that homeowners can no longer assign these issues to independent contractors, whether it's roofers or plumbers or whatever, that you, the homeowner, will be involved in the negotiating with the insurance company. And all that is in place to lower the cost. Okay, let's back up. Why is a company in business insuring homes? They want to make money. And the way they make money is increasing premiums and decreasing expenses. Well, if it's lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit and hurricane after hurricane, right? That's why companies are saying, we can't make money in Florida, we're pulling out. Other companies are saying, listen, we'll stay here, but to stay here, we need more money. So that's why homeowners policies have gone up because there's fewer companies to spread the risk. So the assignability, it will take a couple years to really go into effect so these companies can manage their expenses a little bit better. And so I think maybe in a year or two, we may see some relief as far as premium increases, right? I don't think they'll go down, but maybe they won't go up as fast. So anyway, I know I was all over the place, focused on some changes in homeowners insurance that affects you, some advice for sellers, especially when it comes to roof and flood insurance. So if you're a buyer looking at a house, first thing to ask, does it have flood insurance? Are you in a flood zone? Does it have flood insurance? If it is flood insurance, are you with the NFIP or a private insurer? If it's NFIP, you should be able to assume that and control your premium. Anyway, I like sharing this information with you. Stick around next week because I'm going to give the market update for June. And I tell you, there's some stuff happening that has me concerned, right? Probably has you concerned. But so stick around. We'll talk about that next week. Have a great 4th of July. See you next week. Bye-bye.